Hey, what's going on, Liberty fans? Welcome into another edition of the VinesPomcast. We are so excited to have you with us as we get ready for, believe it or not, the final week of the regular season. It's hard to believe that. We are here. We're hoping that the Reverend Will Matthews is going to join us in a minute. But we have got a big time guest on the show tonight. This is a 4-year player at Liberty, part of a incredible run back in 2013. This is our guy, Joel VanderPol. Joel, welcome to the Vines
Thanks, man. It's a blast in the past right there. That video you got right there.
Yeah, I stole it from Liberty. Um, First off, I want to ask you about that run and that tournament. I want to ask you about what life has been like post Liberty. But my first question for you is: was John Caleb fouled?
So here's what's funny. We had that. So the following summer, we had obviously all of our camps and stuff, and it was awesome. But Mike Eads, who's the official that was on the baseline, whose call that was one of the officials. So we would have like officials come in, and they would run training for like high school and college officials in training, and they would use our camp because it had so many like just exhibition games that they could do, reffing and training on. And so this dude is there, Mike Eads, and we're like, we didn't like bum rush him, but we were all, like at one point I think there was like, 4 of us around him, 5 of us around him, asking him how he was saying, it went down. And I think that is a really tough spot to be in as an official, because like we're going to make those free throws, So I would like to say yes, but at the same time, I'm not envious of the shoes that he was in at that moment on the baseline there.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose. Either team's going to get
Yeah.
upset. Like you're not going to make anyone happy.
Well,
I
here's
mean,
what I always say too, right? The winner of that game goes to play Louisville. Well, Louisville had that championship vacated. So the way I say, a couple things drop, we're national champions. If things fall a couple.
there you go. That's fantastic. Yeah, that was one of the few games post Liberty that I got to go to live. I was like living about 20 minutes away from Dayton at the time, so that was really cool. That was such an awesome experience. I know, even though it didn't end up well, I actually saw you guys practice. I went to like the live
Yeah.
practice, which was just like weird. I'm watching a practice, but it still felt like really cool, really big time. And uh, for being a first 4, I feel like Dayton really like put out an incredible environment for that.
Yeah, they do it well. Like they embrace what it is. And then what's cool too is like, before when it was 65 teams and the play-in game was like the 2 worst teams. Well, now that the first 4, there's a couple, was it 12 seeds that also play? Like you have good teams. Like Del Vadova was there
Yeah.
with was it St. Mary's? Is that right? That or
Yeah.
whoever it was. Yeah. So I think they were playing Middle Tennessee State, and then there's good teams there that are playing for a 12 seed as well. So they kind of embrace it and do a really good job of it. We were yeah, I thought it was exceptionally well done. Like it didn't feel like a consolation prize, right? It felt like a tournament game. Um, yeah, the fun of that practice, we were late for that practice. We were supposed to fly out at like 6 a.m. and our plane, our charter like didn't make it there, or it got stuck somewhere. So we were in limbo from like 6 a.m. until I think we ended up getting to leave around like 1 p.m. and practice was supposed to be like 3:30. So like we are like getting off the plane, onto the bus, hotel change, like police escort, the whole thing. Like it was a very rushed experience because of the plane issues that we had getting there, but still remember it vividly.
Yeah, and I believe Craig Sager was the sideline reporter. And was it who called the game? Was it
Steve Kerr. It was like Steve Kerr.
Yeah, I mean it was
Yeah,
big
yeah, we
time.
had them all. Yeah, they heard we were going to be there, and it was the cool. So it was so odd. Alan York took a picture of it and sent it to me afterwards, and Craig Sayer came up to me and said, "Fort Myers, huh?" And I said, "Sorry, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess he had a couple years stint at a local news station in Fort Myers, Florida, where I was from, and doing his game prep. He made that connection, and we had a moment on the sideline before the game, and so yeah, they had a pretty good cast there for that first 4 game.
Oh, I'm sorry. How can you hear me?
I
I'm
can now.
sorry. My bad. My bad. Well, I'm trying to bring the Reverend Will Matthews in. He's having some technical difficulties. Coming back from Florida, I think he's still got that Florida brain. You know, we're blaming him for the 2 losses down in Florida since he was down there. Uh, all his fault.
I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's talk about that team. I definitely want to chat a little bit about that team before we kind of get into the current team. So that for me was a really special team, and I'm not gonna go on and on about that, but I came to Liberty a couple years after the last tournament team in 2004, so that was the first time. I was a Liberty basketball fan when I was there. That was the first time that Liberty made the NCAA tournament, so it was really special. And you guys got off to a really rough start. Now you didn't play in any of those games when they went 0-8, right?
I do. That's important to note. That is true. Yeah, it was tough, man. That was yeah, we had a bunch of transfers coming that year, and JUCO transfers that were in their first year. And it's like you're good, but I'm like, dude, we're not even close to what we should be doing. And then, but yeah, I was out the first 10 games of that year. I felt very confident going into that year personally, or I guess individually before I knew I had to get surgery and all that stuff. So it was a weird one, but yeah, it was just one of those things where we knew we just like, and I'm sure everyone who's like on a losing streak says this, right? That like, we're not winning, but we're close, or you know, a lot of things to learn from. Like, I know everyone makes those excuses, and like a lot of we were at one point like the worst team to make the NCAA tournament. There was like some jokes there too. I get that, but we had a lot of really good. And so I think that's also why we weren't like surprised when the whole thing went down the way it did in Myrtle Beach, was because like that's kind of what we expected the whole season to be like. And unfortunately, we just saved it all for 5 days, apparently.
Yeah, the best time to peak is in March. That's for
Yeah.
sure. You don't want to peak in January.
That's right.
Especially when you play in a mid-major conference. Did you guys kind of feel after you got that first win against Coastal like everything from here on out is almost nothing's going to be harder? We just won on their home floor.
It honestly, it was the first media. I think they went on he's here. He made it.
Hey guys.
The first media timeout, I think they were up like 14-3. Like it was, check me on that, but like it was after the first 4 minutes, it was like, I think what Coach Laird said was like, that they just gave us their best shot. Like they were hosting, I think they were a 2 seed, I'm guessing is what I think the way it shaped up to be. Like that was the best that they were going to get. Every hit, every shot that Rafa made, or everything that Greenwood made, like was like super loud. And so when that first media happened, we were like, that was it. Like that was the shot that we knew we were going to get. Like now let's just play for the rest of the game. And I'll tell you this, like people with stuff like house money or nothing to lose. Like, I don't think we thought that way. Like we weren't doing this whole, like, oh, I got nothing to lose. Like we're playing with house money. Like, I think we were just competing as hard as we ever did. But it was kind of that thing. You get back to the hotel afterwards, like on the bus afterwards, and we're just kind of sitting. It's like Coastal could have easily won this thing. They were sized, they had experience, and we were down like 11 2 minutes into the game, and then just beat them convincingly on their home court. So I don't think it like you guys aren't gonna believe me. Like it was never this like now we believe like we thought we were good the whole year. We just had nothing to show. We were 10-20. We had nothing to show for it. But it wasn't like this whole moment where we're like, maybe we can actually do this. I think it was quite literally like, all right, we got 3 more, and that's as hard of a game as we're going to have in the tournament. Is kind of the way that we took it.
Very good, very good. Let's check in with the Reverend Will. Will, welcome back from Florida. Love the hat. That's a really, really sharp hat. Definitely a big fan of that. Durham Bulls, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just a couple hours up the road from me. Get to go to a game every year.
So you're a Tampa fan now. Is that what I'm understanding, or?
No, not exactly. But Durham used to be a Braves affiliate, so there you go.
Yeah, whenever
I almost wore a Braves hat just so we could kind of hang out together, Will.
I'm honestly stunned there's no Braves attire in this the show tonight. I'm honestly kind of disappointed. Well, Will, welcome back. I did want to, before we jump into the team, ask Joel for your Liberty fans, your Liberty following. Tell us what you've been up to since you finished school.
Yeah, so I met my wife, Rachel. I met her. She was 3 years younger than me, so she was on the volleyball team. We met at school. Obviously, we got married in 2015, and we now live in Atlanta. I have been doing consulting and sales and that kind of stuff for past 7 years now. So I'm with a company now called exercise.com. And I'm just a VP of sales there, and just have a small sales team, that kind of stuff. So have a lot of fun doing that. I golf a ton, as much as I possibly can. So that's where my here's a quick funny story. I did I was in my first. So after Liberty, I played 1 year with the Lynchburg Titans. I think it was like in the ABA, and had a ton of fun. But it was still I was still able to kind of get my competitive, it was a competitive outlet for me, right? And then after that, I was it wasn't professional by any means. It was semi at best. Anyways, I go to play my first men's league game. Believe it or not, there's actually good men's league basketball in Lynchburg, which is, I think, surprising to a lot of people. But anyways, first men's league game on basketball as being my only competitive outlet for the rest of my life, because I was getting so heated, yelling at a ref. I'm like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So took up golf. And so now golf is that competitive outlet for me. So yeah, we're in Atlanta, 2 sons, 3.5-year-old John Allen and a 1-year-old Jordan. And my 1-year-old is the kid who you give him basketball in the living room, he will walk it over to the playroom to make it in the hoop. So if you could buy stock in infants, you would want to probably do it.
So what, class of
2037,
Richie? Richie, let's get on it, man.
There you go.
I'm in.
That's too
Very
funny.
Cool.
That's funny. Speaking of babies, because I missed, kind of y'all's conversation about that 2012, 2013 team. That year was such a blur to me in that tournament because we had a newborn, our first child, in the house at that time. And so I was just going back before I got on here looking at that roster because I was thinking, what team was that again? I remember JVP being on that team, and I remember Coronado, and I was trying to really was Devon Marshall on that team too?
Yeah, he hit. I think he hit 14 or 17 threes in the tournament in 4 games, and at a 65%. Yeah, he won the tournament MVP.
The precursor of Darius McGee, I think, just a few years beforehand. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of those JUCO guys. That was Devon's first year. That was JR's first year. Casey Roberts' first year. A bunch of guys who brought it. Yeah, brought him in there for their first year. So that was a fun team. Yeah,
that whole tournament was a whirlwind because I had never changed a diaper before, so we were trying to figure that out. So
you learn quick.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to say that team was what what resulted in you having your first child was celebrating. That's where I thought you were going at first, and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome! What an honor. All right, well, let's before I get in trouble, let's talk about the current team here. So Joel, I know you're a big supporter still of Liberty basketball, which it's really cool to see all the former players, tweeting and supporting the team. I just think that's so cool. And you got recruited by Richie, right?
Yeah. So funny story. I signed under Richie, and then on April 1st, Coach Susie called me and said that Coach McKay had left, and I was like, "This is a really bad April Fool's joke," and he wasn't kidding. But yeah. So I've had a relationship with McKay and Susie since I was like 16, 17 years old. And so it's cool. Like when I was at Kennesaw, I always see them and go out of my way, and they always go out of their way to spend time with me and stuff like that. So they've, it's just cool. Like that, when the coaching search happened, it's like, it could be someone we've never heard of or have no ties to, that alumni are not going to get like blocked out by any means, but like that don't really have much in common or strong ties. And it couldn't be further from the truth with Coach McKay. So
yeah, McKay's pretty difficult to like. So just kidding.
What a terrible guy.
Yeah. All right, so Liberty 88-82 winners over Stetson. This was our last game yesterday. Darius McGee scored 39, 9, and 9. I mean, just ridiculous. And Liberty needed every single point. McGee did break the ASUN 3-point record. Kyle Rode and Keegan McDowell also had really good games. Liberty looked like they were going to, win this pretty comfortably. But Stetson, man, they came back hard. Chase Johnston, hopefully I don't butcher his name. I butchered his name last night. Sorry, Chase. You deserve all the credit, man. He played out of his mind. 38 points, was just hitting ridiculous shots. And Stetson took the lead with about a minute and a half left. And then Darius McGee and won the game for Liberty. Joel, we'll start with you. What was your thoughts on this game, and I guess kind of where Liberty stands here on February 20th with a week left in the season?
Yeah, it's not where we want them to be, because we want them to have just not lost a game where it had any like chinks in their armor. But they're setting up just fine. Like Jacksonville State's a very good team, so that was like a legitimate loss, whenever that was, a month and a half ago. But at the same time, like, you guys know how it is. Like, if there's a team that like is kind of like the odds-on favorite, and they haven't lost yet, you don't want that first loss to be come tournament time. Said about like getting the areas of weakness like on tape and addressed at the right time, like enough time to fix them, but not like too much time to like forget that you can still be vulnerable. So, I think that this week is obviously a very good opportunity for us to get things righted. The Stetson game, to me, it was Darius McGee. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I feel has happened. We used to have these moments where early in games we'd be down 11-2 or 14-3, and it was like, all right, it's going to go away. I feel like now we had these like mid-second half lulls that are like kind of odd, or early second half lulls. But it used to always be first half. We'd start slow, but at some point the pack line is going to squeeze, and they're not going to score for 6 minutes. And I haven't felt that. I mean, if you look at the scores of our Stetson scored 82, North Florida scored 72, Jacksonville 73, Lipscomb 69. Like, where are the games that were in the 40s and the 50s? Earlier on in the year and all of last year. And I know that Coach McKay is also not like freaking out because he doesn't have he thinks that Shiloh's as good as anyone that he's had to run the pack line. He has exceptional buy-in. So to me, only thing that's concerning to me is not who you lose to or when you lose to them. It's, I don't like these like second half lulls or these second half like flips in momentum. And I also really miss having our opponents score in the 50s, because you knew like, all right, Darius scores 25, you're good. Now it's like this dude has to have 40 because the game is going to be in the 80s. And so it's just interesting how that shifted to like kind of higher scoring games for college basketball, especially for the ASUN. Again, that's my take. I could be way off from your perspective too.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good take. I would imagine it's probably the 3-point shooting. Everyone just shoots so many more threes now than they shot a couple years ago. I mean, even like this year from last year, it is just shooting up with how many more threes are attempted. And, when a team's hot, you can score a lot of points, and it's not that you're necessarily playing terrible defense. Will, I know you weren't able to catch this game, but I want to break down. And Joel, I apologize. I'm a giant stat nerd, so I hope I don't put you to sleep. But let's break down the offense and the defense. So first, let's look at kind of the offensive numbers here. So the offense for Liberty is great. This is one of Richie's best teams at Liberty. Right now, they're 70th overall in adjusted offensive efficiency, 58th last year. But the 2020 team that we love, that team was 107. So this team is really, really good. And they've been even better since December 1st. Because remember, they started out really slow shooting the 3-ball, struggled against LSU and Iona and Manhattan. But Liberty ranks 40th in the country in offensive efficiency since December 1st. So offense, they're great. And if you're watching, if you look at that bottom one, the conference only, Liberty is far and away the best in like the offensive numbers. So, Will, let's start with you on this one. How do you feel overall the offense is playing?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, like Joel was saying, like you get those lulls where it seems like we can't hit anything. And a lot of times it seems like we got these like just easy, like right at the basket shots, and they are just not falling in. And I just keep thinking, like, every time we go through those dry spells, like if we could just weather this storm, like it's going to hit again. But, it seems like this team has so many more threats than we have had in quite a bit. Even, back in when, that 2020 team, I mean, you had Holmesley and James, and but defense was kind of the hallmark of those teams. And I don't know that necessarily Richie has gotten away from that. I mean, it seems like he, when you hear him in an interview on the radio show or anything like that, it doesn't sound like that's kind of his MO, is to get away from the defense because he has so many scores. But yeah, just looking at the kind of how we are, it seems like we are more of an offensive team than a defensive team. Looking at, but of course I know with these advanced metrics, you're going to give us a master's degree in KenPom here. So that's what we're here for.
Well, that was my thing too. I was like, I want to say something that's like a gut eyeball test, and I'm like, well, and then Nick's going to tell me how wrong I am.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
no,
yeah, because you're watching the game and you're like, what happened to the defense? We used to play defense, and then a lot of times, like, it's just the eye test again. It looks like a lot of the times we have these silly turnovers that lead to points, like just silly turnovers, like just a bad pass, like a pass straight to the guy on the other team, Yeah, so, but I'm not, I've never even played organized basketball in my life. So I know I'm speaking out of school here, but just as a fan watching it, and I'm like, what is going on? It seems like there's a lot of those silly turnovers.
Well, Nick, what are the numbers saying in terms of pace of play, right? Because another thing that Liberty was, or another thing that a lot of times was indicative of the score, or the score is indicative of, is we are completely comfortable walking it up, even when we have a 2-on-1. Like we're good. And so to me, this may not be an indicator of bad defense. Maybe an indicator of the pace is just not as slow as we have had it in previous years. Have you looked into that at all, or is that just a topic we should skip?
Yeah. First off, Will's observations actually are dead on with the numbers. So Will, you're spot on that. I can't tell you anything X's and O's. I can just tell you the numbers and give you that and kind of diagnose that. But Joel, the pace is up a little bit. Liberty's 300th right now in adjusted tempo. They were right around 350 for the last couple years before. So they've sped up a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of that's just Darius McGee, taking shots when he, I would imagine that probably accounts for a lot of it. So I don't really think they've like drastically changed or anything. But Will, what you said about the 2-point, about shots around the rim, Liberty right now, Liberty's still doing really well. They're 56th in the country in 2-point percentage. I mean, that's still a good number. I mean, it's 56 out of 358 teams. That's good. Yeah. But Liberty was 10th 6th, and 8th the 3 years before. So, I mean, they're not as good as they were before, but they're still pretty good. Now, the 3-ball, I mean, Liberty is 3rd in the country in 3-point percentage right now. 3rd in the country. South Dakota State and Purdue are the only 2 teams better. And as far as, Will, what you were saying about, maybe we're having these lulls, Liberty is shooting the 4th most 3-pointers per possession. So when you shoot that many threes, I think the offense is going to feel like it's more hot or cold. And maybe it's not necessarily like really as hot as cold as it feels. It's just when you shoot threes, you're going to miss more, but you're going to score more points when you're shooting the threes, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And I saw the first half of this game. I had not watched the second half yet, but it looked like a lot of times like the ball movement on Liberty side was so crisp and so good that they were intentionally looking for that open three, where it seemed like a lot of the times like they really could have had something inside maybe if they would have worked it that way. Again, I didn't see the second half. Maybe they did in the second half. I'm not sure, but just in that first half, it was like, well, if we can't hit a three, if we can't shoot a three, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, I got some stats on the Stetson game that I'll get to here in just a second. I got a slide on that, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. But yeah, overall, I think that was good. Let's move on to talk about the not as good the defense. So Liberty right now is 184th in adjusted defense. They were 153rd last year, 69th the year before. So definitely the defense is not where it has been. Liberty was really playing really well. If you see on the left, Liberty was had some really good games, and the defense efficiency actually at one point got in the top 100. But the last 5 games have really struggled. So they're the ones that are highlighted. And as it goes down, that's the worst points per possession that they've allowed. And Stetson was the worst points per possession game since BYU. And so the worst of ASUN play. So just breaking it down a little bit more, if you look at just games in February, since February 5th, Liberty's 330th in the country. So it's definitely been a struggle on the defensive end. Now, I say all that, and Liberty still has the best conference-only defensive efficiency rating in the ASUN. So, yeah, I don't think they're playing up to their standards, but for the ASUN, maybe they're not as bad as it feels right now. Joel, let's start with you. What do you think? You would know more about the pack line and the principles and all that kind of stuff. What are you seeing, at least lately, from the defense?
I'm not going to have some smart diagnosis that is going to be backed with statistics. To me, it looks like when we are getting in a bucket for bucket, we're trading. Like, I think it comes down to the style of basketball that we're playing. And so I don't think that it's necessarily like when I went to the Kennesaw game, it looked the exact same that it's always looked, right? Anytime it touches the post, you get the guy that comes over, and then like every single ball screen seems to be guarded the exact same. So there's not this material change that I'm seeing that is like concerning to me, or this material change. Sorry, I had a tab pop up that started talking to me. There's not this material change that like gives me concern. I just look at the end of the scores. I'm like, how are we giving up this many points when like we were, and again, it's because we're letting Darius go off and we're letting him fill it up. It's going to kind of be reciprocated in how many points we're giving up as well, because we've almost changed our style of play, because when Darius is at his best, Liberty's at its best. But you can't have Darius have 30 and, be a minimal possession game. But so I don't have this diagnosis that is going to be exceptionally intuitive. To me, it just feels like we're far more comfortable playing an offensive-minded game. And when you have Darius, why not? Like he's top 3 offensive players in the country. Like, why would you not just like, all right, go do your thing. Here's the ball. So I don't have an answer that you want.
No, I think it was a good answer. Looking a little bit, digging in a little bit more at the numbers. So the 3-point percentage. Liberty was 70th in the country in 3-point defense last year. They're 213th this year. But also, if you just look at attempts, Liberty was 119th in 3-pointers attempted against them. They're 282nd. So teams are shooting a ton of threes against Liberty. And I mean, I think like a team like Jacksonville State joining the ASUN and then Bellarmine, those are heavy, high 3-point shooting volume teams. So, I don't know if some of it's, that and trying to adjust to playing teams that are just jacking up a ton of threes, and that's a different style, and you kind of have to adjust. Or, Joel, speak a little bit to this. I'm assuming Liberty has had a really brutal schedule, travel wise, and just the last month they had like 3 games in a week, a couple times. How hard is it to play defense when you're exhausted?
Well, I would also say this: it wasn't just that they had 3 games in a week once, and they're going to have it again this week. That other time, like that other Jacksonville State game was off of 7-7 COVID, right? And so it's like there's also that component too as well. The defense that Liberty plays is physically demanding, and it's tough to play that 3 times in a week. And then the travel doesn't help as well. So they have had a difficult schedule. It feels like they've never had like a stretch of like home games. Like, it's never like, feels like it's never been like 2 weeks at home, then 2 weeks on the road. It's been, they're can't get in a rhythm. At the same time though, sorry, I'm out of camera. Everyone's got that, right? You can't make that as an excuse for us and then not for another team. Like everyone's schedule is pretty much mirrored apart from, the week that we had to take off for COVID. So I also wouldn't want to use it as an excuse or as really too much of an indicator because everyone else has the same schedule as well. So I don't know. It's all demanding.
Well, what's your overall thoughts kind of on the defense and where you think Liberty's at right now?
Yeah, so what I hear Joel saying is that, from the looks of it, they're not doing anything different. It's the same style of what they've always done under Richie. But for whatever reason, like just that kind of the more focus is really on the offense side of the ball, getting Darius the ball. I wonder how much of it too is teams have seen us for 3 years in a row now, and they've kind of started to figure out some nuances and how to get around some things, and that includes shooting a bunch of 3 balls. So I wonder how much that has to play with, how much has to deal with it. I know these guys are young; they're 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. So they have way more energy than I do, but that still has to take a toll. You do it every night because it seems like the goal of the pack line is just to wear the other team out. But in the process, you do that to yourself as well. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's one of these things where there's so many. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of being tired, the travel, having a lot of young players, some random stuff, and I got some stuff on that here in just a second that at least I found interesting. So yeah, I think it's a combination. I'm hopeful after we get through this week, assuming Liberty doesn't go like 0-3 and blow their first round bye. Well, actually, no, they've already clinched their first round bye. I'm sorry. So they're gonna have Saturday off through next Thursday, and that's gonna be like I think their first like stretch of like 5 days off in a row. I'm kind of hoping that really is able to lock in. Joel, you could speak to this. I mean, there's a different level, I would assume, when you're playing these ASUN games in February, and then boom, it's do or die, right? I mean, it's not that they're not trying or not playing hard right now. It's just, are you able to just kind of reach back and hit that extra level when this is it? We lose this game, season's over.
I would say that, like in the dog days of conference, meaning like let's just call it second half of conference, like no one's 100% healthy. Now this is when I played, right? They're on a far different, sports performance program and nutrition and sleep schedule. Like he's got them dialed in for how to get the most out of their body every single day, right? But no one's fully healthy. No one's fully energized. No one's like feeling great. The semester is also kicking your tail a little bit. Like all those things are starting to add up. around this time, or maybe the past 2 weeks up until this time. I will say, when you get to conference tournament time, if you're lucky to play multiple games in a row, our experience was always that, like, you got more energy, adrenaline takes over. Like, I mean, John Caleb, like, probably shouldn't have played in the championship game against Charleston Southern, but, like, you shoot the ankle up and you can go play. So I would say that a lot of that, once you get to conference tournament, no one's 100% healthy. No one's, like, feeling like their best, but that's across the league. I will say, though, that the urgency component for the teams that are immature, it can suffocate you. And then for the teams that are used to it, like Liberty's played in 4 straight, maybe more than that, 5 straight conference championship games. If you include Radford, back when they were in the Big South, like, there's not a guy on the team who's like, or there's enough guys on the team that inexperienced or, like, moment being too big shouldn't be a component. So, but at the same time, like, if you let that whole it's do or die thing kind of like become too much of a thing, you'll psych yourself out and get beat by Liberty, who's won 10 games like they did in 2013 for 4 teams in Myrtle Beach. So it's you can play it, but the coach will have their choice on how they want to play it, and Richie's not going to make the moment bigger than it is.
All right, so before we move on to kind of talking about where things are in the ASUN and all that, I got to give a positive about the defense in the Stetson game. So our friends over at shotquality.com, awesome website. I don't know if Liberty subscribes to this website, but I know from hearing like some interviews with Susie, he did an interview with Alan York. Liberty measures the quality of the shot that they're allowing their opponents to shoot, and I love that. I don't think you should ever be completely looking at the results and saying, "Hey, that's what happened," because a dude makes a shot that's guarded, versus a guy missing a shot when he's wide open. That those aren't going to equal out to future results. So, anyways, not to go too far into this, but shot quality basically measures what should have happened. So they're saying, based on the shots that both teams took, Liberty should have won this game 92-73. And Stetson's points per possession should have been right about average at just about 1. So, and this kind of felt like what I was watching last night. I felt like I was watching this game and I was like, I don't really think they were that terrible defensively. I didn't think that Stetson was just, getting all these great looks. Just they had a dude go off, and that's going to happen. So shot quality also, and I got one question for you about this, Joel. They're saying that Liberty over the course of this year actually probably should be 2 wins better. They're saying that they've had some teams that have shot a little bit. So I don't know. I don't pay the $500, so I don't know which games were they did the game for us today, but I don't know what all the other games are. But maybe some of these other games, maybe some of it's a little bit of variance. And like I said, I think it's probably a factor of multiple things. But Joel, I want to ask you about this. So Liberty is second in the country in the rim and 3 rate. So basically shooting a bunch of threes or shooting at the rim. How do you feel about this, like, new style that seems to be taking over college basketball, and Liberty is like right at the forefront of it, of either shooting at the rim or shooting a 3?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that in a second. I want to talk about the shot quality thing real quick. What's really cool about this, they have 100% buy-in from every single person on the team and staff with this. So I was sitting behind the bench at Kennesaw. There are dudes on the grad assistant, student managers, and every single player. If they take a bad shot and make it, Liberty bench is still thrilled. Like, that's a good shot. It's a good shot. And so they're exceptionally vocal about that piece. This is not something that the coaches are keeping to themselves and that they evaluate in a coaches meeting. Every single player on the bench and on the court knows what a good shot defensively and a bad shot defensively is, and they don't care about the result as much unless obviously it probably loses or leads to a loss. So that I just want to touch on that because you had mentioned that. the 3 and rim thing, it's more fun to watch unless you're in your 60s and hate, this style of basketball. But it's more fun. Like Steph Curry changed basketball, and that is like this is a result of Steph Curry. So you want to talk about influential players, like this is because of Steph Curry, and I say it in a good way. It's more fun, right? Like dunks and threes are the two things that they shoot the flames up they used to shoot the flames up in the Vine Center for. Like that's what people come to see. And then like also like players are just better. Like we're gonna say that like everything is moving, technology and all these things are moving towards getting better, but like the human performance isn't. Like of course it is. So we are able to do things in like Darius McGee didn't exist 30 years ago, right? And like that's a good thing. So for the overall state of the game and like for Liberty being a part of it, like I would rather be like think about Georgia Tech or anyone who runs a triple option, right? Like Army, right? Like that's not the most fun to watch. Like it's cool because it's iconic, but like you probably would rather be a fan of Texas Tech than Army if it's like for enjoyment of a game, right? It just matters like who's successful, who's not with it. So if you want to have an exciting product and something that fills seats, like this is the style of basketball you're going to play. What was always so like Coach McKay has always been an offensive guy. He went to UVA and said he got a master's in defense, right? Like if you look at the Liberty, Nick, when he was there the first time when you were there, like look at what Smitty was doing, look at what Seth was doing, look at what Kyle Oman was doing. Like he was an offensive guy, and that piece hasn't really left him. He just went and added as good of a defensive, fellowship as you could over the course of 6 years. But like, it's not that Richie doesn't like. So my point is just that I think I'm great with it. Like I love that. It's more fun to watch. You get to recruit better players. Frank, I would imagine that want to come play for that. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I also would add, I think it's a good style for Liberty, kind of the caliber of players that they're able to recruit right now. Liberty's recruiting, I think, at a much higher level than they ever are, but they're still not going to be, able to pull the same recruits as Virginia or Virginia Tech at this stage. This gives you a chance to even the score when you're playing some of these high major teams because you're shooting more threes. You're getting, higher quality shots where, they may be able to make more shots, but if theirs are, long twos, it kind of can even out a little bit. So,
well, Nick, I would say this too. It also is going to be how they're able to go get players that can compete with it. Like VMI had no business like being a good team with what they were requiring of their students and cadets, right? But they scored 102 points a game, and that was when it wasn't like, that commonplace. So you have to find a means of getting better players than you probably should, right? Well, we are getting better players than ASUN players, and I'm not saying it's because we play this, if you're a good shooter, you get the privilege to shoot that, but it's certainly not hurting our ability. It's like, yeah, we're going to play solid defense, like modeled after UVA, like modeled after, after the Bennetts, and we're also good. Like, go watch Keegan. Like, Keegan has a green light right now. Like, I would say Shiloh has a very green light for what we probably thought he was 2 years ago. And Darius has the greenest light in the country. So like, but like, well earned. But if you think like that's a very good recruiting tool, like, yeah, we're going to be able to suffocate teams on defense. And then this is also the kind of caliber of offensive players that we also produce. So, but great point, Nick.
Yeah, me and Will have gawked about VMI like a billion times on this. I'm sure any Liberty fan under the age of 25 is like so sick about these old farts talking about how fun Liberty VMI games were back in the day. But that team is so fun.
I wonder how much going to Conference USA will change some of that, if any. I mean, I know it won't change kind of what McKay does. You wonder if it will change kind of what kind of recruiting we go to. Because we're going to see some bigger guys in Conference USA than we do in the ASUN right now. But yeah, I mean, the Caleb Holmesley's mid-range shot or Lavelle Capel's mid-range shot was not sexy enough to be on Sports Center top 10. You know.
Yeah.
But Darius McGee's shot from the logo will occasionally make it, and a big dunk. So yeah, I completely get all that.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, well, let's move on to the story of the night around college basketball. Maybe not the story of the night, but I think there was something that happened in a Wisconsin game. But Jacksonville State, they whipped up on Bellarmine tonight, 82-67. This was in Louisville. Jacksonville State's good. They were 15 of 31 from three tonight. So here's the updated standings of where everything is. Jacksonville State is in pretty well complete control at this point for the number one overall seed. And then here's kind of where the tournament sits as we speak. I'll go back to that in a second, but here's kind of the remaining schedules. Jacksonville State plays EKU at home on Wednesday. EKU's not playing well at all. And then North Alabama, who's playing even worse, but that is on the road. Liberty would have to have them lose one of these games and run the table. So at this point, I mean, I don't. Anything can happen. We saw Jacksonville State, lose by, I think, 14 to North Florida. Now, North Florida's all of a sudden looking like a juggernaut in this conference out of nowhere. So things can change. But it's looking like Liberty probably is not going to have that number one overall seed. Joel, let's start with you. What's kind of your overall thoughts on the conference? What I would like to hear your thoughts on Jacksonville State, and then maybe if any other team that you see is like really kind of sleeper or a dark horse.
So what I thought when I saw Jacksonville State play was it felt like they had 5 guys that had played 100 games. Now, I don't know if that was how true that was or what the aggregate number was, but you were watching guys that felt like they had played together and guys that had played a ton of games. It wasn't to me one like, oh, they're dead without this guy. It felt like they had a very their top scorer is scoring 15 a game, right? Which is fairly common in college basketball. We just fortunately, I guess, have Darius, but like they don't have this like wildly lopsided offense where one person's out and they're screwed. I was like, that just looks like an exceptionally mature team that has played a ton of college basketball together. When I talked to Coach Susi at Kennesaw State, I was like, I wasn't like, what happened? But I said that wasn't a fluke. He's like, not at all. Like they're just a good basketball team. And I think that we were the darlings for so long, right? That it was like, oh, this Liberty team, like we could do no wrong for 3 years, right? Like we came in and slayed the. After that, it was like we could do no wrong, and we like looked good doing it. Like Jacksonville State could do that too with like this is their welcoming party to the league as well. So not by any means a fluke and a very good team. I think that Florida Gulf Coast has always had a chance. They get a ton of transfers. That's one thing that I would just always. I'm never comfortable with them. Obviously, North Florida has shown the way that they're beating people like has been somewhat concerning. I still think that Liberty will win the conference tournament. I think they have the most guys that have been there before, especially given this format. Like the whole high seed hosts, like it's not this like, hey, go post up at the Marriott for 6 days, and like you're traveling potentially, and obviously the high seed shouldn't, but it is a little bit different for maybe some of the newer teams. So I expect Liberty to win, regardless of how we finish out the regular season. We'll obviously have a first round bye, or it was a quarterfinals bye, whatever that is, I guess first round bye. So that's not me being a homer. Like I think that's what I would expect to go into the conference tournament.
Yeah, good observation on Jacksonville State being experienced. I got the number for you on that. They are 38th in the country in age of experience. Liberty is 205th for comparison. So yeah, they are definitely one of the oldest teams in the country, and yeah, they play like it. Well, what's your thoughts on kind of the state of the ASUN, where Liberty's at here heading into the final week?
Well, Eastern Kentucky, if they could get hot right about now, that would be good.
We keep saying that. They
yeah.
just keep losing.
Yeah. Joel, what is it like when you kind of go into this last week of the season, knowing that you've got a tournament coming up where, one game, one bad game and you're out? Like, are you kind of like, I mean, especially Liberty, I know they would never say they're sleepwalking through these last 3 games. But what is it like when you're thinking of a tournament coming up and you're going through those last 2-3 games?
Yeah, I mean, we never had the luxury that they have, which is kind of having your fate sealed for the positive. We were always trying to, like, for us, if there was always, I always felt that there was like fairly reasonable ramifications on like what that would do for our conference tournament, based on the last week of the season, right? Like it rarely, the year that we won our last regular season conference game was at Radford, right? It was always a good game with us. We always evenly matched, but like that was always a good test. Like, how good are we, right? You always want to see like the last game or last 2 games of the conference season. Like, how good are we? How are we playing? Like, are we trending the right direction or trending the wrong direction? That's what I would take is this week for Liberty is like, are we fixing everything that we're saying we're going to fix in film? Because you can't hide from your deficiencies anymore. You know them within, if you didn't know on the court, you know within an hour after the game. So there's no question why, at least in that room, why Liberty lost the games that it's lost. So now this week is, can we win 3 games in a week, which sucks schedule-wise, and can we positively affirm that our deficiencies have been addressed and that we're trending in the right direction? That's what last week is for Liberty.
Yeah,
so I would say there's no sleepwalking happening. I would say previous years, yes.
Yeah, this is 3 favorable matchups for Liberty. Now, Central Arkansas, I have no idea what to expect tomorrow. Their computer numbers are awful, but they've won 7 ASUN games, so I don't know how they're doing it. I'm fascinated to watch it. Always exciting to see Liberty play in a new gym, and they have a very weird gym. So I like the weird, quirky gyms. I'm all about that.
There's not a normal, but like there's a ton of weird gyms in the ASUN.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Vanderbilt obviously takes the cake as like the weirdest gym in the country. But there are some funky gyms in the ASUN, I've noticed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to name it if you're going to ask me to, but like I feel like every time I'm on ESPN Plus, I'm like, oh, they just don't have bleachers on that side. Like even Stetson, like they have a brick wall on one side, like just like 3 feet off the baseline.
Eastern Kentucky's really wild. They got like that weird ceiling. That's interesting. You gotta look up a picture of that. Alan York, I think, was tweeting out a picture of that. And Kennesaw's kind of,
you got Bellarmine playing in Freedom Hall,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
As someone who's from that area, it's just so cool that they play there. It was kind of sad that they had like 50 people at the game tonight, which was a huge game for them on like a Sunday night. Like, what are the people of Louisville doing? Their basketball team's terrible. Like, come see Bellarmine play Jacksonville State. Maybe they could have kept it within 20. I don't know, but yeah, Liberty did. To explain this, Liberty did clinch a first round bye. Now they can't say they did because Liberty's basically 3 games ahead of Florida Gulf Coast. Florida Gulf Coast can't catch them in the loss column. And so the best Florida Gulf Coast could do is be tied with Liberty, and the tiebreaker is net, and Florida Gulf Coast can't catch Liberty in net. So they can't officially say that Liberty clinched, but Liberty's 1 win or 1 Florida Gulf Coast from officially clinching. So, and then Jacksonville, Liberty's a game ahead in the loss column. So it basically, unless Jacksonville has this incredible net push over the last week, which I don't think is going to happen, Liberty needs any combination of 2 wins or 2 Jacksonville losses to clinch that. So essentially, you go 2-1, you're going to clinch, or you go 1-2 and Jacksonville splits their last 2 you're going to get. So Liberty should at least have home court through the semifinals. The thing that stinks about Bellarmine losing tonight is unless Jacksonville State has one of these weird performances. Now they shoot a lot of threes too, so they have a high variance. You never know what could happen. So I don't want to, say it's impossible. But the thing that does kind of stink is that scenario of Bellarmine winning the ASUN tournament and Liberty getting that bid just in case you had a bad night. That's probably off the table because that would go to Jacksonville State. But yeah, maybe Jacksonville State could lose somewhere before the championship, and then Liberty would get to host the championship. Again, that's certainly possible.
Yeah, so we're not talking about like all bets are off in the tournament, right? Because they're we frankly we showed that that's you never know who you're gonna, because your record in the regular season doesn't matter at that point because everyone's there, seed's already set. But this is what was interesting, the guys from Charleston Southern, I started playing basketball with Sa Nimley and Arlon Harper and Cedric Bono after college. They're from Atlanta. And they were telling us after they beat us in the regular season, we don't want to play them in the tournament because those guys are good. And so my point is yes, you may, Jacksonville State lost to Central Arkansas or whatever it is. But whatever, those things can absolutely flip on themselves. Or the game that you won that you knew you probably got, snuck away with one, or the game that you lost that you never should have. Those things kind of find a way of flipping themselves or almost writing themselves in conference tournament time. So all bets are off. Mid-major, ASUN conference tournament, anything can happen typically, but there's going to be one of two teams will likely be in the championship that you could expect. But there's a lot of times teams that you would never expect. North Alabama, was it last year? North Alabama made it, or whoever it was. There's, so, I mean, it's always possible.
Will, we got a question for you. What percentage do you give us of winning out?
I feel like this is a dangerous question for me to answer, but I'm going to say 50%. And, I'm going to be a little bit overconfident.
So I ran the numbers, of course, and it's 55%. So it's a lot higher than that. I mean, it's the actual numbers with the KenPom data, but I think it's higher than that. I'm going to go gut for once. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I did real quick want to talk about some of the individual players. If you're watching, I do have the points per game leaders and the KenPom offensive rating leaders. I won't get into all that, but Joel, who's maybe a player that's kind of stuck out to you this year?
I think everyone's talking
not
about
named Darius McGee.
Yeah, not named Darius McGee.
This one guy is really good. I think that Keegan is shooting with more I would say up until the past week or so, I thought that Keegan was shooting with more confidence than I've ever seen him shoot with. I've been talking to, whether it's alumni or friends that also watch. One of the guys I talked to about the most is Chris Russ and a student at Liberty, but it's it feels like Shiloh realized he was good this year, or he started to listen to coach telling him dude, you're really good, because coach has been talking this way about him for years. The problem is just there's been guys in front of him. It feels like this year Shiloh's realized that he's actually good, and I think where that's most evidenced is his comfort and confidence shooting the three. He was always able to do funky stuff around the rim, and that was never anything out of character for him. But when he pulls up from 3 feet behind the 3-point line with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, he thinks it's going in, and I think that's been a big transition for him. Also, I will say, watching Vincent in person, I saw someone make a wild take that he was today he's better than Cuffy ever was. That's probably disrespectful, unless it was one of you two that said it. But he is not playing around. When he's on defense, he's exceptionally bought in and as good of an on-ball defender as we've seen. And he's 18 years old. So I could go with who I'm impressed with, or what I'm impressed with about each player down the line. But to me, this season will come down to Shiloh and Darius, and then Kyle will go off for 20, or then then Keegan will go 7 for 8 from 3. Like, that's very rare, but like, we don't see those things as much because Darius still exists.
Yeah, very good. Will, real quick, you got anyone that's sticking out to you right now?
Yeah, I would say Shiloh, just because I feel like Kyle Road is really coming on strong, and so that gives the other teams an extra guy to look at and prepare for. Shiloh seems like he hasn't been strong the last few weeks as he was earlier in the season. So I think if you get Kyle going, that really opens things up a little bit more for Shiloh. So I'm hoping he really kind of takes over during the tournament.
Yeah. Couple quick thoughts. Yeah, Kyle Road is playing just incredible basketball right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited to see what he can do in the tournament. He was phenomenal in the tournament last year, so interested in that. I'm interested to see if Blake Preston starts getting some more minutes. He was really good last night, 9 points in 10 minutes. I wonder if some of the defensive struggles, maybe, if maybe he gets some more minutes, maybe that's why he's not getting more minutes. I don't really know. I've tried to watch and see if I think Blake's playing good defense or not. I have no idea. I can't tell you. I'm not in tune enough to know that, but I'm interested in that. And then I want to ask Joel about Blake real quick, but one other point on Van Zandt. If you look at his KenPom offensive rating, 104.9, that's about 5% better than average. He's doing that, and he has not shot the three ball well at all. He has been elite around the rim and really good for a freshman shooting free throws. So I don't necessarily, I'm not ready on that Cuffy take. That's a little far, but he is a really, really good player that I am just so excited about. Joel?
Yeah. I think that I think that Blake is, and this is typical with big guys, they will be used or sat based on the pace of play or style of that game, right? And so if you find this game being high scoring, high tempo, you're not going to see a lot of Blake. If you see this game being one of those ones that's kind of a knockout, you're going to see a ton of Blake, because Blake's deficiencies are not like him being bad at something. It's like, are his strengths conducive to what we need in this game? Like, that's the reality of what that conversation is. So again, like, the games that he's playing well, it's because the pace of play and the style of that game are allowing for him to be effective. But there's also ones where, who do they have on the floor? If they've got 5 guards, like, why would we put Blake in a situation that he can't be successful in? We've got 5 guards, and we've got a good defense with 5 guards that we can, or whatever that means, right? We can afford having Shiloh be our biggest guy on the court at times. And Kyle is as strong as anybody that will play, and he can absolutely play post defense if he needs to. So what you'll see being the story of Blake is, what's the story of the game? That's what will determine how useful Blake can or can't be, to no fault or deficiency of his own. It's 100% based on the overall speed, tempo, and just kind of like the rhythm of the game. But I mean, he's shown exceptional maturity when the game calls for him. How many guys that size are close to as well as, like, you can trust him on the free throw line. So Blake can easily have his own moment in the tournament. If one of these teams might say, we want to slow Liberty down because we don't want Darius scoring 40 points on. We don't want Darius scoring 40 of 80 points on us. So, like, there may be a point where a team says, yes, Liberty plays exceptionally well at this pace, but they also, like, when Darius has 40, like, nobody beats him. So there could be a point where someone actually plays it back into what I would consider Liberty's pace of the first half of the season and seasons prior was, to see if there's a way to get them out of what we're seeing now, this crazy offensive efficiency. Enter Blake Preston, can have a career night in a tournament game. So that's what the story of Blake could be.
Yeah, very well said. Love your insight on that. Yeah, and he's shooting 59% from 2-point range. So he's around the rim. He's about as good as it gets. We did get a couple questions. Just want to get to these real quick. Really appreciate everyone watching and supporting and um, commenting on tonight's show and interacting with us. William asks, "What game scares you the most here in the final week?" And I'll bring them back up here for you. I'll start. I mean, I just think that Central Arkansas, just because of how big of an unknown they are, and it's on the road. I mean, they're the worst of the three teams, but just because it's on the road, I'm always going to feel good about Liberty at home. So I don't know. That's my take. Joel, what do you think?
What happened last time Liberty played FGCU? Darius had 50. So there are plenty of people who felt disrespected and pissed off after that game because they got made an example of by a dude who's 5'8". So if someone has like the why behind them coming and having a career night, it's somebody at FGCU, or it's the aggregate of FGCU guys that tried to play defense on Darius. That one scares me the most.
And they do have a 6'11" guy, which is Samuel, which just kind of it's just a quirky, weird matchup. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could kind of all three of these games. Kennesaw's had like a lot of really good performances and a lot of really bad. Do they have it? I would say that game is probably the one I'm least worried about, but that's probably the one like Liberty will go 2-1, and that'll be the one they lose just because of how basketball works sometimes. Well, what about you?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about Florida Gulf Coast in terms of having a chip on their shoulder after Darius went off on them. That's a good point. Before that, I would have said Central Arkansas just because of just kind of the unknown of playing at their place. And I know their numbers are bad, but I was just looking at their schedule. They played a tough schedule where they got blown out a lot out of conference. And then they nearly beat Jacksonville State the first time and then did beat them at Jacksonville State by 10. So that team, that fact alone kind of scares me that they can do that to Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I usually can like kind of get an idea of what to expect. I have literally no idea. I'm excited for tomorrow because I love a game where I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
We got one. Sorry, Joel, were you going to say something?
Well, like Central Arkansas's like color scheme and logo, and like it kind of looks like a creative team that you would see on like NC. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like it's such an unknown, like for that reason, like, and that's just what I thought of when you said that.
Yeah, I think they also got some issues with their HD camera, like they're not in like the full resolution, and it's Scottie Pittman Court, I think, is the name of it too. It's just, I'm excited. It's gonna be weird. I love weird. When you're at this point of the season, I need some weirds. I'm at this point. I want to get to the conference tournament. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, talking about weird arenas, the weirdest thing about every ASUN arena except for Liberty Arena is they're not lit for television. Like I don't understand. Like cameras are in weird spots and the lighting is terrible for TV.
Jacksonville's the worst, man. Their camera operator is brutal.
You don't realize how spoiled we are from a game production standpoint until you start going on road games in conference. It's you realize how, and it's like, yeah, you realize how good we have it on home games.
Yeah.
All right, we'll close on this question. We got a question from Chad. This is just for our guy JVP. How important is it having one all-conference superstar playing during the conference tournament compared to the regular season? And you would obviously know you had oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart here. Devon Marshall went off in the ASUN and the Big South tournament. What do you feel like? Do you feel like there's maybe some comparisons with Darius in that?
Yeah, the difference is expected anything out of us, and so I think we were able to fly under the radar. Like Darius, Liberty has, I would say, the biggest target on their backs because they've beat every team in the ASUN, and the ASUNs had to watch them, do their thing the past 3 years, and Darius has the biggest target on his back individually. So to me, the answer to that question is like I would have a difficult time like quantifying what's the difference between like regular season and conference tournament. Like everyone's going to have a moment in the conference tournament. That's what I think is unique about the conference tournament thing. Is like you have 3 games in 4 days or 3 games in 5 days, or whatever it is, and everyone has their moment. We had the exact same thing. Tomas hits a huge 3 that a play we've drawn up 1,000 times that he's never hit. He has it, right? Like Drew has some left-hand hook he's never shot in his life and makes it at a key moment. Like, dudes are like, everyone has their moment in the conference tournament, and they're all highlighted because every single possession in the conference tournament is just elevated, right? So to me, it's not like we know Darius is the best player on the court at all times. Like, no matter who, like, he's likely the best player on the court, no matter who we play for the rest of our conference tournament or NCAA tournament. Like, he's going to be the best player on the court. So that's not the unknown. The unknown is who's going to be the guy this game, or who's going to be the guy this media timeout, or who's going to be the guy this half. And so to me, it is the things that we know are Darius, and the things that we know are probably Shiloh at this point. Or Shiloh and Kyle, but like, someone's going to have a moment. And so you take comfort in knowing Darius is there. You take comfort in knowing that you got Coach McKay, but other dudes are the guys who end up, unless Darius decides to just, average 35 in the conference tournament, which is fully possible. But I would guess the chances of somebody else having an unexpected big moment are higher than Darius scoring 140 points in 3 games.
Very good. Well, Joel, I could talk with you all night. I really, really appreciate your time and coming on our silly little show. It's so cool to have one of our favorite players. And seriously, in all sincerity, we loved your time at Liberty, and that run was really special to me as a fan in 2013. So best of luck with you, with everything else you got going on, and with those kids. Did want to say a quick word. If you saw last night, we are going to be helping out with the with Asia Red, doing some pre and post game shows for the ASUN tournament. So if you watch me struggle through trying to do a live show, going to a Richie McKay press conference last night, hopefully be able to get a little bit better here next time. We worked out some kinks yesterday, but we're going to be doing that. We're going to try to come on next Sunday night with another live show to get ready with an actual bracket for the ASUN tournament. So we are so excited about that. As always, if you haven't, subscribe to the VinesPomcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on YouTube under Liberty Classic Games. For Joel, for Will, this is Nick. Have a great night. Go Flames.